Ever heard of a town so steeped in misfortune, it's been called the Village of the Damned?
You're talking about Dudleytown, right?
Exactly.
Connecticut.
Yep, we're diving into the unsettling history of Dudleytown.
A place where history and legend get all tangled up in the most eerie of ways.
It really is like stepping into a Gothic novel, you know?
It is, yeah.
We've got historical accounts, chillin' local legends,
Uh-huh.
and we even have a first-hand experience from one of our listeners. Might just send shivers down your spine. So buckle up. This is going to be a fascinating ride.
Let's start by separating fact from fiction.
Okay.
Dudleytown wasn't always this ghost town.
Right.
It started as a settlement in the mid-1700s. British colonists.
Hoping to tame this heavily wooded corner of Connecticut, including members of the Dudley family. I imagine it wasn't easy.
Not at all. The terrain, mountainous, the soil.
Poor.
Farming was their initial goal, but it proved incredibly challenging.
So they needed to find a new path. It makes you wonder, what would you do if you found yourself in that situation? Stuck in a remote, unforgiving landscape with your dreams slipping away.
The Dudleytown settlers, well, they were resourceful. They discovered iron ore. And with the American Revolution going on, the steel industry was booming. Dudleytown found a new purpose, supplying charcoal.
So for a time, they thrived in this really isolated corner of Connecticut. It's a reminder that even in the most challenging circumstances, human ingenuity can find a way.
Absolutely. But as we know, fortune can be fickle.
Yeah.
By the mid-1800s, the landscape of industry began to shift dramatically.
The gold rush drew people westward. Richer ore deposits were discovered elsewhere. Suddenly, Dudleytown's isolation, which had always been a challenge, became its downfall.
Exactly. Demand for their charcoal dwindled, and the town's economic lifeline began to fray. It's a familiar story. The ebb and flow and progress leaving some communities behind.
It's like the ghost of a boomtown. A reminder that even the most bustling settlements can just fade into obscurity. And that's where the truly intriguing part of Dudleytown's story begins. It's not just about economic decline.
It's about the whispers of something darker.
The whispers of a curse. The earliest mention we find of a curse on Dudleytown comes from Edward Sears's 1926 book, History of Cornwall.
It's interesting, though, because Sears doesn't really explicitly say anything supernatural, you know? He focuses on the historical events and the doom of Dudleytown. But it's almost as if this idea of a cuss was already out there, just waiting to take root.
And the Dudleys themselves had quite a dramatic family history, didn't they?
Indeed. Sears recounts the story of Edmund Dudley, an ancestor of those who settled Dudleytown. He was a member of the British royal family.
Talk about a family tree with some twists and turns. This Edmund Dudley, he was executed for plotting against the king.
Plotting against the king, right.
Some sources say it was King Henry VII, others say it was King George II.
It wasn't a peaceful end, that's for sure.
And this is where history and legends start to intertwine. The Dudley family fled to the colonies, fearing persecution.
Haunted by their ancestors' fate.
Right. It makes you wonder, did they carry that sense of doom with them across the ocean?
Some accounts say Edmund Dudley's execution led to a curse on the whole bloodline. They were doomed to a tragic existence no matter where they went.
And so this historical tragedy gets woven into Dudleytown's whole story. It's a perfect example of how legends can build upon real events.
Right, adding layers of mystery and intrigue. It's human nature, I guess.
Yeah.
We want explanations, especially for the unexplainable. And the curse, well, it provided an answer, didn't it, to Dudleytown's misfortunes. Unsettling though it may be.
And there's so many stories from within Dudleytown itself that seem to fuel this cursed narrative. Tales of madness and tragedy.
Absolutely. Like the story of Gershom Hollister. He was murdered in a home owned by William Tanner. And after the murder, Tanner is said to have gone mad.
Blaming demon animals in the woods. Demon animals. Okay, this is where Dudleytown takes a decidedly creepy turn.
It does, doesn't it? Then there's the story of Abel Dudley.
Okay.
He also succumbed to madness, and wouldn't you know it, he also spoke of these strange creatures in the woods.
Adding fuel to the fire of the legend.
Right.
Did anyone live in his house after him?
Yes. Nathaniel Carter and his family moved in after Abel Dudley left, but they were plagued by these inexplicable tragedies, and they eventually fled Dudleytown. And ultimately, they met some grim fates in New York.
It's like the shadow of Dudleytown followed them.
A chilling thought.
And then there's General Hyman Swift.
Revolutionary War hero.
Right, whose wife was struck and killed by lightning.
Grief-stricken, Swift is said to have also descended into madness.
Another piece added to the tapestry of tragedy.
Yes.
And we can't forget Horace Greeley, the presidential candidate.
Right.
His story adds another layer of heartbreak to Dudleytown's history.
In 1872, just days before the election, Greeley's wife, Mary Cheney, took her own life. And guess where this tragedy occurred? Her childhood home in Dudleytown.
Wow. These stories are so vivid, so specific, that they really stick with you.
And that's what makes them so compelling, right?
Right.
Whether they're entirely true or embellished over time, they contribute to the mystique of Dudleytown.
But there's one more story we need to discuss. The story of Dr. William Clark, a founding member of the organization that owns Dudleytown.
The Dark Entry Forest Association. Dr. Clark's story, well, the legend surrounding him, is particularly unsettling.
Because he found his wife driven to insanity after she witnessed something terrifying in the woods. Some say this event was what led to the formation of the Dark Entry Forest Association.
Whether it's true or not, Dr. Clark's story really solidified Dudleytown's image as a place where something dark and sinister lingered.
Yeah.
A place where even the most rational minds could be unhinged.
But the tragedies associated with Dudleytown extend beyond these tales of madness. There are unexplained deaths and disappearances woven into the town's history. It's as if the land itself was hungry for sorrow.
You're right. In 1774, for example, the entire Carter family died from this mysterious illness. No explanation, no known cause, just sudden and devastating loss.
And then there's the story of John Patrick Brophy. His wife dies of consumption.
Yeah.
Then his 2 children vanish into the woods.
Never to be seen again.
And if that wasn't enough, Brophy's house burns down.
Under suspicious circumstances.
And then Brophy himself disappears.
Leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions.
Yeah. These patterns of tragedy are hard to ignore.
They are.
Each story, tragic in its own right, adds another thread to the tapestry of Dudleytown's curse. It's as if the town itself was a magnet for misfortune.
It's a compelling narrative, that's for sure. But we have to remember, these stories have been passed down through generations.
Whispered around campfires, shared in hushed tones. Who knows how much they've been embellished or altered over time.
Exactly. But there's another unsettling element to Dudleytown that even skeptics find hard to dismiss.
The silence. This strange, pervasive silence that hangs over the area.
Many visitors to Dudleytown, even those who don't believe in curses, remark on this eerie quiet of the forest.
A reporter who spent the night in Dudleytown in 1976 described this silence as unearthly.
It's almost as if the absence of sound amplifies the feeling that something is just not right. A silence so profound that it becomes a presence in itself.
And of course, the legends surrounding Dudleytown don't stop there. They continue to grow, fed by whispers and speculation.
Tales of a wolf-like shadow creature stalking the woods, strange anomalies in photographs, voices echoing through the trees.
It's the stuff of nightmares. And in the 1990s, Dudleytown's notoriety reached new heights. Greg Saltz and those infamous ghost globules.
Oh, yeah.
A college student captured some intriguing photos that even caught the attention of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
The photos, yeah. Saltz claimed they showed evidence of supernatural activity.
Yeah.
Fueled the flames of Dudleytown's legend. Even Ed and Lorraine Warren, known for their work with the paranormal, they advised caution when it came to Dudleytown.
But as the town's notoriety grew, so did the frustrations of the locals.
Of course. Yeah.
It's understandable. What started as local folklore had become a magnet for ghost hunters, thrill seekers, even people who dabbled in the occult.
The influx of visitors, all that brought noise, disrespect for the land, even the risk of forest fires, it became a real problem.
And ultimately in 1999, the Dark Entry Forest Association made the decision to close Dudleytown to the public.
Trying to protect the forest and discourage trespassers.
But closing Dudleytown didn't erase its legend. The internet, with its endless capacity for sharing stories, only added to the mystique of this forbidden place.
Almost as if Dudleytown, shrouded in mystery and closed off from the world, became even more alluring.
And that brings us to a particularly fascinating part of this deep dive. A first-hand account from one of our listeners, Mandy. She shared her experiences in Dudleytown during the early 2000s.
Her story is especially interesting because it connects to those older accounts of Dudleytown, the ones that mention these strange, almost demonic animals.
Right. Mandy and her friends had 2 separate encounters that left them really unsettled. In the first, they spotted a creature that fit the description of the demon animals.
Tall, thin, hairless, grayish-white skin. It's a truly unsettling image.
And this creature didn't just stay in the shadows. It actually lunged at their car.
Wow, an aggressive encounter, not just a passive sighting. Makes you wonder what they really saw that night.
And then, on a later visit, Mandy's friend discovered a photo on her phone, a photo that none of them had taken.
What was it?
It was a ghostly face, wearing glasses,
And just to add to the mystery, the photo vanished when they tried to transfer it to a computer.
like a digital ghost just disappearing.
It's these kinds of details that really get under your skin.
It is.
Speaks to the enduring power of this location. Even with access restricted, Dudleytown continues to spark the imagination and generate these unsettling experiences.
These stories really make you wonder, what really happened in Dudleytown? What forces were at play in this isolated corner of Connecticut?
We've got this puzzle, right? Pieces of history, folklore, personal experience. And it's up to us to try to fit them together.
But before we continue exploring the mystery of Dudleytown, we need to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to delve deeper into this chilling story.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Dudleytown. We've been exploring the unsettling history of this abandoned Connecticut settlement, haven't we? Piecing together fact, folklore, first-hand accounts. It's a pretty eerie picture.
It's amazing how this place keeps captivating people. Even after almost a century of being abandoned, its story still holds this incredible power over our imaginations.
I think it's a testament to the allure of the unknown, wouldn't you say? Dudleytown has become a sort of blank canvas onto which we can project all our fears and fascinations.
Yeah, it's like we're drawn to these stories, aren't we?
Yeah.
Of curses, disappearances, strange creatures lurking in the shadows, like it taps into something primal within us.
Absolutely. It's like looking in a mirror, but the mirror reflects all our deepest anxieties and curiosities about the world. But maybe we should step back for a second and try to separate fact from fiction a bit.
Right. We've talked about all these individual stories, the tragedies that happened to families who lived in Dudleytown. But do these events, tragic as they are, actually point to something larger, something more sinister?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's interesting how our minds try to make sense of things that seem random, you know? We look for patterns, connections, some kind of explanation, and when there aren't any clear answers, well, our imaginations tend to take over.
We create stories, build narratives, weave together some sort of meaning, even if that meaning comes from fear or superstition. It's how we try to make sense of a world that can feel chaotic and unpredictable.
Right, exactly. And when you've got a place like Dudleytown, so steeped in history and mystery, it's like the perfect place for those stories to grow.
But we do have to remember that these stories have been passed down through generations. They can change over time, right?
Yeah.
Details get added, events get embellished. What may have just been bad luck can turn into a tale of supernatural horror.
Like that game of telephone we used to play as kids, the original message gets distorted with each retelling.
Yeah.
So how can we, as critical thinkers, navigate all this web of truth and embellishment?
I think we have to look at the historical context, go beyond those sensational headlines, and try to understand the social and cultural influences that might have shaped these legends.
Okay, so for example, think about the era when Dudleytown was settled.
Right.
People were much more likely to blame misfortune on supernatural forces back then. They didn't have the same scientific knowledge or psychological frameworks that we have today.
So what we might see as a mental illness or even just bad luck, they might have interpreted as witchcraft or demonic possession, a curse.
Exactly. And when you think about Dudleytown's isolation, the harsh conditions, the dangers of that time, it's not surprising that fear and superstition might have taken hold.
So we have to consider all these factors when we're looking at the stories about Dudleytown.
Yeah.
We can appreciate the mystery and the chills, but we also have to keep a critical distance, right?
Absolutely. We can't just take these stories at face value. We have to ask ourselves, what else could explain these events? Are there other interpretations? Are we letting our fascination with the supernatural cloud our judgment?
Like those experiences Mandy had. As chilling as they were, could there be a more rational explanation for what she and her friends saw?
Maybe they encountered a rare animal, something undocumented.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was just the darkness playing tricks on them, combined with their anxiety.
And the photo on her friend's phone? What about that? Could that have been a glitch, a hoax, or even a case of mistaken identity? We have to consider those possibilities too.
Of course, yeah. But even when we're being skeptical, there's still this undeniable creepiness about Dudleytown, like a whisper in the wind,
A shadow that lingers at the edge of our vision.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this deep dive so captivating. It's not just about finding answers. It's about embracing the ambiguity.
Yeah,
Those questions that stick with us even after we've looked at all the evidence.
I agree. Sometimes the best stories are the ones that stay mysterious, the ones that keep us guessing, keep us pondering the possibilities.
It's that blend of fact and fiction, history and folklore that really sparks our imaginations and keeps us coming back for more.
For sure. Dudleytown, with all those abandoned homes that have been taken over by the forest, it's like a stage for those stories to play out on.
Yeah.
It's a physical reminder of the stories we tell ourselves about the past, about the things that shape our lives, about the shadows that lurk, just beyond what we can understand.
It's a place where the line between the real and the imagined blurs, where the past and the present seem to, collide.
hmm
And that, I think, is the true allure of Dudleytown, this reflection of our fascination with the unexplained.
It's like a reminder, even in our modern world, with all our technology and science, there are still places that have this hold on us.
Places that whisper tales of mystery and beckon us to explore the darker parts of ourselves.
And as we continue looking into Dudleytown, I think it's really important to think about perspective.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the stories told by outsiders, people who are drawn to the mystery of the town.
Yeah.
But what about the people who actually live there?
The locals.
Yeah, those who call this region home and deal with the consequences of Dudleytown's notoriety.
It's time to shift our focus and consider their side of the story, wouldn't you say? We spent a lot of time talking about the legends and mysteries of Dudleytown, but now let's shift our focus. Think about the people who actually live near there, in the shadow of this abandoned settlement.
Yeah, it's easy to get all caught up in the thrill of the unknown, the supernatural and all that.
Right.
But we got to remember that for the locals, Dudleytown, it's not just some spooky story. It's part of their history, their landscape, their lives.
And for a lot of them, this whole curse narrative, all the
Uh.
hype around Dudleytown, it's frustrating. They see it as twisting their history, misrepresenting their community.
Imagine, your town turning into some paranormal tourist spot, a place where people come just to stare at the ruins and whisper about curses. I can see why they'd feel protective of their land, their heritage.
It's like they're stuck between this alluring legend and the reality of their lives.
And we have to acknowledge that these legends can have real consequences.
Yeah.
People coming to check it out can lead to trespassing, vandalism, even damage to the forest.
And it puts a strain on local resources, disrupts the peace of a community that values its privacy.
That's where groups like the Dark Entry Forest Association come in. They're doing important work.
They are.
They're not just protecting the physical space of Dudleytown, they're also trying to, I guess, reclaim the narrative, shift the focus away from all the sensational stuff towards a more, balanced understanding of the site.
Its historical and ecological significance.
Right, exactly. Trying to balance preserving the past with respecting the present.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about responsible storytelling, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Who gets to tell the story of a place? And how do those stories shape how we see it?
that's a good point. It reminds us that even when we're exploring these mysteries, getting into the legends, we have to be aware of how our curiosity impacts the real world.
Dudleytown's story isn't just about ghosts and curses, is it? It's about people, resilience, the power of nature, and about respecting the stories of those who call it home.
That's right.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Dudleytown, I want to leave you with this thought. What if the real curse of Dudleytown isn't something supernatural? What if it's the weight of our own expectations?
The burden of this narrative that's become so ingrained, it overshadows the real story.
What if, in trying to find something spooky, something sensational, we miss the chance to see the nuances of history, the balance of the ecosystem, the perspectives of the people who live with the legacy of this place?
Maybe the real challenge with Dudleytown isn't solving the mystery of the curse. Maybe it's recognizing that its story is complex, with many layers.
Acknowledging the human stories, the tragic and the triumphant ones that happen there,
Appreciating the natural beauty that's endured despite everything.
and respecting the people who are working to preserve Dudleytown for the future.
Dudleytown is this blend of history, mystery, human experience. It gives us a chance to think about our relationship with the past, the power of stories, and how important it is to be responsible when we explore.
It's a place that makes us ask questions, look at things from different angles, and approach the unknown with curiosity but also respect.
And who knows, maybe if we let go of trying to solve the mystery, we'll discover something even better. A deeper understanding of ourselves, our connection to the land, and how stories shape how we see the world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Dudleytown. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.